Hello, this is Rachel too, and these are my WeWork designs. So, this is an assignment that I had while in Vector Graphics. The assignment was to take a food and make it into a character. So I sketched out the sushi character first before taking it into Adobe Illustrator. I added more details when I revised it that I didn't know how to do when I first started working in Illustrator. I messed up with opacity and using the clip option that made it easy to replicate shapes and make the process of completing this much simpler. So like what I did was this is the original, and so I made like a little rice shape and I used the click option and basically just moved them around so it was just a bunch of rice. um I decorated a little white circle in his little eye. I thought it made it a little cuter, and I had shadows and highlights to the chopsticks. I even added shadow to the plate. And I messed with like the shadow right here. I made it a lot lighter and more natural looking. And this is another vector assignment that we had. This one was to take a list of idioms and turn it into an illustration. And my idiom was drinking like a fish. So I sketched out a plan beforehand and traced it into Illustrator. After that, I messed with gradients and tried to replicate realistic looking highlights to the image. To revise it, I edited the opacity of the highlights and added more things to the image that made it far more complete. So I messed around with the gradient on this so I had more dark gray on the top. I added, instead of a hand, I made a little fin. Thought it was cuter like that. I added a collar to his little suit jacket. I added a little spillage and more like drops of drink in his little glass. And I moved the table up because I realized that this table had like an outline of orange, which I did not want. Um, but yeah, that's what I did for that one. And okay. This is also a vector graphics assignment. For this one, we were supposed to take two words from a list and combine them into an illustration. My two words were paint and galaxy. So I sketched up the idea of a paint palette that had paint on it, except the paint is the planets of our galaxy, and there's a paintbrush scooping up paint from Earth. To revise this, I added more highlights and also dimmed down the shadows to make it more natural. So you can tell like the shadows are really dark here. So I lightened them up. I add highlights, and I even added little like highlights to the paint or planets because I wanted it to look like it was paint and it was still wet and be used, and so you can see like the paintbrush scooping it up. I even added more like little dots of stars because I don't think I knew how to use the brush tool because I just used the brush tool at like it was like 0.25. That was how big it was. It was tiny, and I just added little white dots to make it look more like stars. Um, This is a flyer design that I had for an event about a pet adoption. I really like the original design, so I didn't do much to change it. However, the changes I did to it made it look a lot more better, or a lot. Make it look a little better. There we go, that's English. First, I added an iris blur on the top image. I felt like adding that would be a nice touch. I also changed the font color to a slightly lighter orange as well as capitalized a few words that I felt were necessary. Lastly, I decreased the opacity of the bottom image slightly. I felt that doing that would make the text more obvious to the viewer. So, this is the before, that's the after. See, now in the actual Photoshop document, this is not blurry, so I don't know, like, why the letters are more blurry than this, so ignore that. But and they're also the same color in the Photoshop document, so I don't know what's up with that. But see, I added a little blur, and see the original image has a little bit of a blur, but I wanted to add it more like around, so I did that. And then see, Adopt a Pet is a lot lighter of an orange, and then I capitalized the A in this. And see, I changed the opacity. Now, it doesn't look this light in the Photoshop document as well. It's just a little bit dimmer. Um, but yeah, that is my rework designs.